All right, welcome back to week 4 of me going through the challenges in the C Sharp Player's Guide. Same reminders as always. I'm not doing a lot of editing here because I want to just keep it simple, something I can do every week. And also, I don't want to I want to show the journey. I don't want to edit out the mistakes and the confusion because that's really just a part of the journey. That's a part of making software. So we've gone through a bunch of these challenges. I think we got enough experience points to be level. No, we're at least level 4. I don't want to count it all up right this second. But we are to this buying inventory challenge, and the discounted inventory challenge builds right on top of that immediately after. And then we begin a race to the end of the section. So we'll see how many of these we get through. Going to spend about 30 minutes today, and we'll just get started. So, buying inventory. It's time to resupply. A nearby outfitter shop has the supplies you need, but it's so disorganized they cannot sell things to you. Can't sell if I can't find the price list, Tortuga, the owner, tells you as he turns over and attempts to go back to sleep in his reclining chair in the corner. There's a simple solution. Use your programming powers to build something to report the prices of the various pieces of equipment based on the user selection. It gives you a little display. You search around the shop and find ledgers that show the following prices for these items. Objectives: build a program that will show the menu illustrated above. Ask the user to enter a number from the menu. Use the information above. Use a switch, either type, to show the item's cost. So I'm going to copy this text, and I'm going to copy that text as well in a second. So I've just got a whole new project here for the week. We copy that sample output. Okay. Let's see. Build a program that will show the menu illustrated above. Now, there's a bunch of ways we could do this. We could just, like, the simplest thing we could possibly do here would just be we just, like, use a bunch of string literals. And I'm pushing Control D for that, like, duplicate line. You can do that a bunch of times here. So this is where our first input comes in, is this 2. So this, if we want to make it work that way and not on a new line, then we better use right instead of right line, because right line will put in a new line and wrap around to the next line. So right will not do that, which means our input's going to be right here at the end of this line until we hit enter. And then we poor man's version. So we will revise that a little more, but we have already at this point checked off build a program that will show the menu illustrated above. We are done with that. Ask the user to enter a number. We better do that right here. We've done this a bunch of times at this point. Torchest. Torches cost 15 gold. So at this point we can check that item off. Let's see, using the information above, use a switch, either type to show the item's cost. So this wants us to use a switch, and I think we've got the price list, which is well, it's on the other screen, but we've got the price list. So what we want to do is get the cost. So let's see. The cost is measured in gold, 10 gold, 15 gold, 25 gold. That to me, like, there's none of these that are like fractional, and gold seems to be like gold coins or gold nuggets or something. Like, they don't necessarily seem like there's something that's fractional. So I think I'm going to stick with an int for this. I don't think a float would be a bad choice, or a double. Int, let's see, so int cost. Let's see. So what we want to do here is populate this cost using a switch. Now, I switch statements have been around in the language for a very long time. Switch expressions are comparatively new. But for this type of thing where it's like I want to choose a value based on some other thing, like a switch expression is super convenient. So that's the version I want to use. And so I can do, it's interesting that it's suggesting an if statement here. We could do this with if statements as well, other than the problem specifically says use a switch. So we're going to stick with a switch. So a switch expression, we put the name first, the value that we're switching on, and then the switch keyword, and then curly braces, and then that will create a value that which we want to, whatever the result of this whole expression is what we want to store in cost. And now we just have to figure it out. So if we entered in a 1, then rope, we know cost is 15. If we enter in torches, from the description, oh, I got that wrong. Rope is 10, torches is 15. Climbing equipment is 25. Clean water is 1. Machete is 20. A canoe is 200. And food supplies is 1. Oops, missed a comma here. Now, I'm going to not declare and then initialize this on separate lines. I'm going to do this all on one line, so I'm going to compress this a little bit. But it does the same thing. This is just it's just complicated initialization code because the switch has got so many possibilities in there. Now we've got a couple of issues going on here still. This is saying that variable is not used, which it's not. So we could do this. Just inject that in here. And then this is saying, well, hey, you haven't covered all scenarios. What happens if somebody enters in a bad value? Where we are at right now in the book, I think it's not unreasonable to just pretend that the user is going to enter good data. But we could do a default in here, and then we know that we're not going to. The program won't blow up. We just might end up in a scenario where we don't know what they chose. So that's an improvement at least. It isn't like if this were a program that people were paying $19 a month for and we're expecting great things out of, even that is probably not sufficient to just say, oh, well, I don't know what you picked. I guess it's free. But technically we can check that off. The one, well, let's run this. We'll discuss the problem in a second. So we get our menu. What number do you want to see the price of? A canoe, 6. Torches cost 200 gold. So it is the right price for a canoe. A canoe is 200, but it says torches. So the sample program does like put that torches in there, but it does say build something to report the prices. We could use some creative liberty here and say that costs that. So now we've solved that problem, and whatever they pick will get. Now it doesn't matter what we pick. If we pick the canoe again, that costs 200 gold, which is correct. I think this type of solution is just fine. But the way that has it, the way that the sample has it, where it says, "Oh, that," it calls the item by name, makes people start to think, "Well, how do I do that?" So let's talk about that. One possibility here is there's a lot of possibilities here, including a bunch of things that we haven't discussed. Like if I had all the tools available in the language, I would probably be making a class or a record to define these items and their cost. That's what I would do. But that has many chapters still to come, so we don't have that yet. So let's find some other options that we could do. We could just make a switch similar to this, and I think I want it to be up here at the start. So string item equals that. So now we can just rope torches. We just put in all of the names of our items here: climbing equipment, clean water, machete, canoe, and food supplies. And this, we can say unknown. So I think I'm going to give this a better variable name. I'm going to call item name, not just item. So we figure out the name, and then we figure out the cost. And now we can inject this in here. Item name. We're going to have some grammar issues here depending on what we pick. All right, let's see. So now if I say I want a machete, machete costs 20 gold. Like in theory, that should say machetes cost 20 gold, or a machete costs 20 gold. We could pick our, so we could just ignore that. That's an option here. It's not that big of a deal. I don't love that. I like it to be grammatically correct. One possibility here is to, and the original problem description says torches cost 15 gold. So we could make it so that they all fit that same pattern, which expects like a plural form of it here. And so in that case, we might want this to say ropes. So this is the text we're going to stick there. Ropes cost whatever gold. Torches cost. Climbing equipment costs. I think that one works. Climbing equipment costs. Climbing equipment cost. I don't know how to make that right. Climbing equipment. Clean waters. Machetes, canoes, food supplies. We could do that. I don't. Like I said, some of these are going to be super awkward. Climbing equipment's cost. It might. So, like I said, that the text down here was a for example, and we could do something like one thing we could do here is we could just say, well, let's see. We could make this entire text down here be something we choose in a switch. So I don't love that, but let's just kind of show it. Like that could be something like displayed text equals rope costs 10 gold. Torches cost 15 gold. Climbing equipment costs 25 gold. I'm gonna skip these. And I'm gonna say down here, I don't know what that means. And then I can actually comment out this entire thing. And now all of this can just be the message we displayed text. So now if I pick, say, rope costs 10 gold. If I pick climbing equipment costs 25 gold. So now like that change allows us to get the grammar correct in it regardless of what it is. But like now the cost is just like buried. The numeric value for that's just buried in the text. There's not a way to look at that cost separately. In this challenge in particular, that doesn't really, like, it's okay that it's that way. But in the next challenge, we're going to see that it'll be nice to have the price as a number. So I think what I'm going to do to call this challenge done is I'm going to say something like, I'm just going to change the text that's down here. You want item name that is something gold. Oh, this, well, yeah, I want this to be item name again. All right, you want torches? That is something gold. You want climbing? You want clean water? I think that one's going to work regardless of what we pick. Like I said, I just changed the text. I'm actually half tempted to just go change the text in the challenge because I think this might be a little easier to solve, and my intent wasn't to make people worry about grammar, so, but rather to just use a switch expression. So anyway, I think this is sufficient for this challenge. I think it doesn't use exactly the same text that they used, but I think it works. Now, I think one thing that people often see here is they're like, well, the concern they come up with is, well, what if I add another item in here? What if there's going to be, I want to add in, say, beef jerky. I got to add it here, and I got to remember to add it here, or I'm going to get this unknown, and I got to add it here. Like, I've got to add a single item, I got to make 3 different changes. And so they start to say, well, like, what can I do here? What are my other choices? And like I said, there's a lot of tools you could use in the future, classes and records, and even tuples, which is coming up relatively soon. You could use arrays. There's a bunch of tools that are coming that could remove that duplication, or like having to make a change all over, several different times for this to work. But like I said, right now, I don't think that's anything to worry about too much. There's if you have the full range of tools, you can definitely simplify. Since we don't, I think this is an okay solution. So I think we've checked off all those boxes, and we can now move on to the next challenge, which is this discounted inventory. So once the guy realizes that you've kind of cleaned up and fixed the shop, he wants to repay the favor by giving you a 50% discount. So we need to ask for the user's name, and if their name equals your name, divide the cost in half. So this is a place where had we done that just putting in the text directly, it would be really hard. Like, we would have to do 2 different switches and some conditional logic, which we don't have those tools for yet either. Or wait, actually, we do. If statements. We've got if statements. I don't know what I was thinking. So at any rate, it ends up with a more complicated code if we want to just like compute the text all at once. In this case, I think what we can do is we can say at the start, we ask for a name. So console.writeLine. What is your name? And then so we just read in the name, and then down here we just say, so at this point it's pretty easy to say if name equals the special name, then cost equals half of the cost. We just cut it in half. Or we could just do the compound assignment operator. That's the equivalent. That's the same as cost equals cost divided by 2. So we would take the current cost, cut it in half, store it back in. Now at this point, we actually could get fractional values. This and this becomes, because we're using integer division, these, I mean, they would be a half, it would be 0.5, but because of integer division, those actually become free. So maybe we should change this to a float now. Let's run that. What's your name? Food supplies. That is 0.5 gold. So like that one, that challenge is really easy if your code was set up the right way initially. If it wasn't, then it could be, like I said, if you had like used a switch to like decide what text to display as the output, then it would be tricky to like squeeze in this. You'd have to do something like if, like basically we'd need to like put a different switch in each of these. If, so yeah. Something like not cost, but option. I'm going to use a switch statement here for this. Case 1, console.writeLine. Something like, for you, special customer, ropes are only 5 gold. Break. Case 2. Console.writeLine. For you, special customer. What are we on? Torches. Torchist are only 7.5 gold. Break. And I'm not going to write all this out. You could imagine filling out the rest of those cases. And then you'd basically do else. Ropes are 10 gold. So there's a way to make it work. Like I said, I like the other style better. If you can get that price into just a numeric variable and just cut it in half. Something like that. I like it a little better that way. And that's about it for that one as well. So let's see. Yep, I think we're done with that. Let's jump back and go to one more, which might be all we've got time for. We'll see how long it takes. So we've got discount inventory, and now we're going to do the prototype. Mylara, the captain of the guard of Consuls, is approached you with the beginning of a plan to hunt down the Uncoded One's airship. If we're going to be able to track this thing down, she says, we need you to make us a program that can help us home in on a location. She lays out a plan for a program to help with the hunt. One user, representing the airship pilot, picks a number between 0 and 100. Another user, the hunter, will then attempt to guess the number. The program will tell the hunter that they guessed the correct number or that the number was too high or low. The program repeats until the hunter guesses the number correctly. And it gives you an example of how this works. So we're finally using loops here, and I'm going to copy all of this in. We're going to do this challenge. I don't think we're going to have time to do anything beyond this. I think this will finish the rest of our time. Okay. So let's see. Build a program that allow the user, the pilot, to enter a number. Okay, that part it should be pretty straightforward. So int number, and I'm sure you guys have played this, game before. Guess a number, and to guess the number, you try and cut the space in half, and then so you guess 50, and they'll say, oh, that's too low. So then you say, okay, 75. Well, that's too high. Okay, 62. That's the basic idea here. So I'm sure you guys have all played a game like this in the past. Equals, let's see. I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit. Console.writeLine user 1. Enter a number between 0 and 100. And this has the input on the same line in the example, so I'm just going to use console.write, and now I will get my input. So that checks off the first item. If the number's above 100 or less than 0, keep asking. Ooh. So now we need a loop. So there's a couple of ways we could do this. But given that we know we're going to want to run this once, I think maybe a do while loop makes sense here. While number is less than 0 or number is greater. Visual Studio's fighting me on this because number's not in scope here. We'll talk about that in a second. Or number's greater than 100. So this is going to say, I don't know what this variable is, even though it's right there. What's going on? It's right there. Well, remember, scope. Scope matters. The scope of this variable, because it's declared inside of this loop, it's only inside of the loop. So it can't be used in the loop's condition. If we want that number outside of the loop, which we do, not just to check the condition, but also after, we got to stick it outside of it. So if we just move the declaration up to here, keep the assignment in here where it is, that problem should be solved. So I think, let's give that a little quick test run. So if I do -5, it should ask me again. If I do 10,000, it should ask me again. And if I do 100, it should stop. It did. Okay. Yeah, above 100. So 100's allowed and 0's allowed, but -1 and 101 are not. Clear the screen once the program has collected a good number. Okay, well, we're there. So console.clear. Check. Ask a second user, the hunter, to guess numbers. User 2, guess the number. And now, what is your next guess? We want this input just on that same line, so I'm going to do console.write and put a space here at the end so that it'll be formatted right. And now we're going to do we're going to create a variable to store the guess, and we'll read that from the console and convert it to an int. So now this will allow us to ask a second user to guess the numbers. So we're technically done with that step. And if we, so indicate whether the user guessed too high, too low, or guessed right. So if guess equals number, console.writeLine, you guessed the number. Else if guess is less than the number, console.writeLine, that was too low. Now I just wrote that out, but I look back at the problem. It says like 25 is too low. So if we want to get that in there, we better use our string interpolation and do that. Else. So we know it's not less than and we know it's not equal. It must be greater than. So we don't need another if. Same thing here. We want okay. So now let's see if I pick a number 42. What is your next guess? So I'm gonna guess 42 and it should be right. You guessed the number 42. 9. 9 is too low. Program's over, you lose. So we're very close. We have done this part, and now all we need to do is loop until they guess it right, and then end the program. So what we need is a loop here, and I think the loop needs to go around this stuff here. So again, I think we can use it's interesting, like this challenge, I'm putting 2 do while loops in, but in the general course of programming, I tend to end up with like do while loops are the least common type of loop in the stuff I tend to do. I have a ton of for each loops. For loops are not uncommon. While loops are pretty common. In this case, though, a do while loop really does seem like a pretty reasonable thing to do. While guess does not equal the number. Oh yeah, so we got the same problem as before. The guess, it's only in scope on the inside of this loop. So if we want to be able to use it in the condition, we gotta declare it outside of the loop. So int guess. And I think that should do it. Enter number between 0 and 100. We'll stick with our 42. So let's see. What is your next guess? We're going to say 100. 100 is too high. 0. 0 is too low. 41 is too low. 43 is too high. So I'm pretty confident 42 is going to work, so I'm going to just start over and do it the normal way. So normally you'd cut it in half, 50. So right now the range you know about is 0 to 100. 50 chops that in half. 50 is too high. Okay, well, now we know the range is 0 to 50, so let's go 25. We'll cut that range in half. 25 is too low, so now we know it's within 25 to 50. 37, 38 is the middle of those. 37 is too low, so now we only got like 13 numbers. So we go like 43, too high. So it's between 37 and 43. Let's do 40, too low. So we know 43 is too high and 40 is too low. It must be 41 or 42. We got it. And problem solved. I'm trying to think if there's anything else specifically I want to mention on this. I don't know that there is. I think that's probably enough, and I think that's enough for today. So, but that was we got 250 experience points in this little session, and that, let's see. I don't think that's enough to move us up to the next level. But just in the way of kind of wrapping things up, so we did get through buying inventory and discount inventory, dealing with switches. prototype where we're using loops for the first time, which is a really cool, powerful tool. And we will use loops in potentially every single program from here on out. No, that's not true, but potentially all the rest of these in here. So I think we're still in level 5. I don't think we got enough experience points to or maybe level 4. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it done for today, and I'll probably do this again. I'm sure I'll do this again in the near future, and it very well might be a week from today. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you soon.